So if you're watching this video, possibly you're struggling with writing some of our scripts and maybe didn't so well on the test. So we're going to have a review for just a few of you and see if we can get this going. Okay, so we define variables so that we can use this line of code anywhere in the script without having to type it, except all we need to type is that. So this one word is going to stand for all of this. Okay? And the same with this word. But in order to do this, we need to tell the computer what kind of variable it is. So public means I can see it in the game. So if I come down here, I can see that variable in the game and I can change it. So if I start playing this game right now and we run it, it's so fast we could barely even see that thing move. So, but by making it public, I can come here and make it like 0.5 and play it. Still way too fast. And I can make it 0.05 without having to go back to the script. By making it public, as I'm playing my game, I can adjust certain variables and give them the way I like to. That's still too fast, so how about 0.005? That will probably work. That works. Okay, so that's why we make a variable public. We don't have to make it public. So let's make two, one that is public and one isn't. So, well, let's just start with this one. Let's go over these two. So in this case, we want to control the speed of our player, and we name these variables. So we want to make sure we name the variable for what it's going to do. And notice we tell the computer to remember all this information before the game starts. So it's put before void start, but when the computer starts looking at the script, we want it to see these, get this information first before it even starts running it. So in this case, I want to control the variable in the game, so I type public. I then have to tell the computer what kind of variable it's going to be. We're starting off with 2 because we're using numbers. So the first one is a float, meaning that it is can be a decimal. So if we think we might want to have a decimal and get finer control like what you just showed, I'm using 0.005. Then we have to tell the computer it is a decimal, so we use float for floating point decimal, meaning I can put a decimal there anywhere. I can float it anywhere I want to. That decimal can float all over the place. So if I'm going to use a decimal and I'm actually going to type a decimal in here, I got to put an F there for floating point decimal. Okay? So that means I'm going to, the computer's going to remember when I type speed that we're going to see it in the panel, that it can be a decimal or a whole number. So a lot of people just use floats because it can also be a whole number. I could just make it 1 or 2. I'll make it 1.3 now. And then we finish, if it's going to be a decimal, we finish with an F when we have a float. As long as you put a decimal in here. If I make this just 1, notice it's fine. So with a float, I can make it a whole number or a decimal. We'll just put that down there for the heck of it. Now, if we know it's going to be a whole number, notice this one I do not need to see in my panel. I don't need to control this in the control panel because some things we don't want them to be able to change when we're playing the game. So in this case, I'm telling the computer it's going to be a whole number. It can only be a whole number if I put int. Floating point decimal, int for integer. This is the name of the variable that we give it. This is also the name of the variable that we give it. And this has to be a whole number. If I put a 0.3, I'm going to have an error message. Even if I put an F there because the computer says, wait a minute, this is a whole number. You can't have a decimal. Okay, so we have created, like on a test, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you the value. and I'm going to tell you whether I want to control it in the game or not. This one I want to control in the game, so you would type public. You would notice that this is a decimal, so you would go ahead and make it a float, and then put the name equals. If I gave you this and 4 and tell you I don't need a control in the game, you don't need public. So you know, because this is a whole number, you're going to tell the computer we always have to say what kind of variable it's going to be. It's going to be an int, and we're calling it run, and it equals 4. Okay, for our quiz, we're going to want to add this, and this. So we're going to run it one time, which means we want to run it in void start. So it's going to do it right before the game starts. It's going to go ahead and add these two together. If I put them down in void update, it's going to run forever. It's going to run every frame. So if I want to print these and just test it out, it's either debug.log or just print, and then the two variables, speed and run. And you'll notice once you've defined these, if you're putting them in, they're going to come up. So if I start typing run, there it is, because the computer remembers what it is from up here. So I'm going to save it. So I'm going to add this plus this. It should be 5.03. So now to add it, we're going to come to our game, go into the console, clear whatever we have, and I'm going to just click play. Now you're thinking, well, it should have been 5.03, but notice I changed it down here. So I changed it because the speed I made so I could change it in the console, and I did change it. So let's go back and see what it should be. It should be 1.03. So let's come back and make it 1.03, which is what the script says, so we can make sure that we're adding correctly. And let's just get it. And there it is, 5.03. So I want you to duplicate that. I'm going to put an assignment up on Google Classroom. Take your time, see if you can write the script, and if you want to make up your own variables, you can. Add some different values you can, and maybe run it until there. So you're going to create a new script though. So you're going to your console here, and I have a scripts folder, which is right click, create folder, and I call it scripts. So I click in there and then just right click, create C# script, and give it a name as soon as you do, and double click on it. All right, take your time, see if you can get this done.